Laughter always hit hardest when it started quiet. That's how it was the moment Lena Lane opened her lunchbox. 1 second. It was just the hum of fluorescent lights and the scrape of cafeteria chairs on tile. The next, it was a whisper, a snicker, then a burst of breathy laughter that spilled across table 6 like someone had cracked a joke too cruel to say out loud. But no one had said anything. Lena had only lifted the lid. Inside, a sandwich wrapped in reused foil, the edges slightly damp where the mayonnaise had soaked through. A soft apple, bruised brown in 3 spots, and a folded napkin that used to be white on which her mother had written in smudged blue pen, "Love you, my songbird." Someone leaned over. "Oh my God. What is that?" Another voice giggled, loud enough to draw attention from 2 tables over. The sound turned sharper now. Students craned their necks to get a glimpse of the scene. Lena froze. Her fingers hovered near the box, unsure whether to defend it, hide it, or just walk away. She should have known better than to bring that lunchbox today. It was an old one, metal, rusted at the corners, with a faded decal of a sunflower half peeled off. Her father had used it when he worked construction before the accident. Before the payment stopped. Before the world got louder and meaner and more interested in what Lena lacked than what she could offer. The lunchroom smelled like old ketchup, sweat, and floor wax, and now it smelled like humiliation. But Lena didn't move. She kept her eyes on the sandwich, her face blank, the kind of blank that takes practice. Across the room, Brittany Langley took a photo. Snap. The flash wasn't on, but Lena could still feel the spotlight of it. Later, the photo would be shared in a private group chat, captioned, "Dumpster Gourmet." Right now, though, all she felt was heat rising in her neck. She reached for the sandwich. Someone coughed the word EO. But just as she began to close the lid again, a strange metallic groan echoed through the cafeteria. One of the ceiling fans above her gave a soft clunk, then stopped. It wasn't dramatic, just odd. Every other fan kept spinning. But that one, the one above Lena's table, hung still and silent like it had decided this moment required a little more attention. No one really noticed, except one person. A man in a dark gray suit stood just outside the main doors of the cafeteria. He had a visitor's badge clipped to his coat pocket, a coffee cup in one hand, and a phone in the other. His son, Daniel Jr., had forgotten his science project at home. Something about a homemade volcano. So Mr. Carter had come to deliver it himself. He hadn't expected to be early. Hadn't expected to pause. Hadn't expected to see her. Not the lunchbox, not the sandwich, but her. Lena Lane. He didn't know her name yet. Just the shape of her shoulders as they tensed, the way she closed her lunchbox like it held something sacred and breakable. Something about it. Something about her felt familiar, and not in the way adults say that to sound wise, but in a way that made his breath catch. Mr. Carter stepped back, leaned against the doorway, and forgot about the science project completely. Meanwhile, Lena packed the sandwich away without taking a bite. A teacher walked past, eyes glancing toward the commotion but too trained to intervene. Brittany kept giggling, already distracted by her own TikTok replay, and the fan above Lena's head remained perfectly still. By the time the bell rang for 6th period, the moment had already dissolved into the 1,000 small forgettings that made up middle school. But Mr. Carter didn't forget. Neither did Lena. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table of their 2-bedroom apartment, really just a former laundry closet with a view of the dumpsters. Her mom, Sarah, stirred lentils on the stovetop while Lena copied down math problems in the margins of an old envelope. The rusted lunchbox sat between them. "Did you eat today?" Sarah asked without turning. Lena hesitated, then nodded. Sarah didn't press. She just turned down the burner and said, "There's talent segnups posted at school. Your teacher called. Said you might be interested." Lena kept her pencil moving. "I'm not," she said quietly. Her mom smiled without looking. Sure, but she was. She was so interested it made her palms sweat, made her heart beat too loud when she walked past the bulletin board outside the main office. Talent night, Friday, 600 p.m. All acts welcome. She'd seen the sign, stared at it for a full minute. And tomorrow she'd go back. She didn't know what would possess her to do it. Only that something inside her was already humming, soft and strange, like the opening note of a song not yet written. A song she wasn't meant to sing, at least not here, not in this school, not with those kids. But she'd hum it anyway, even if the ceiling fan never spun again. The next morning, Lena stood in front of the bulletin board just after first bell. Her backpack hung low on one shoulder, its fabric thinned from years of wear, its zipper missing 2 teeth. The hallway bustled with students, some tossing paper balls, some chasing each other with stolen notebooks. But Lena stood still. The sign-up sheet for talent night fluttered slightly under the air vent. Nearly 20 names already crowded the paper, their entries scribbled in bubble letters and dramatic loops. Modern dance, ukulele cover, stand-up PG-13 lull, group lip-sync Spice Girls. She stared at the bottom line. Her hands were cold. In her pocket, she held a small folded scrap torn from an old receipt. She hadn't planned to write her name on it. Not last night, not when she whispered, "Scarborough Fair?" to herself before bed. Not even when her mother softly hummed the same tune while ironing her only white dress. And yet, here it was, warm from her grip, full of trembling graphite letters. Lena Lane, vocal solo, no music. She held it against the paper, hesitant. A group of boys walked by. One of them turned to glance, smirked, and muttered something under his breath. Lena didn't catch the words. She didn't need to. She knew the shape of a joke even before it landed. Still, she pushed the paper into the slit at the bottom of the sign-up box. It slid in, vanishing into whatever pile waited inside. Gone. She turned before she could change her mind. 3 steps down the hall, she heard it. She signed up to sing. And then, hope they bring earplugs. Lotter trailed her all the way to math class. That evening, she told her mother. Sarah froze for half a second, the spatula hovering mid-air over a pan of reheated beans. Then she lowered it and turned. "You're going to sing?" Lena nodded. Sarah's eyes softened. "What song?" Lena hesitated. "Scarborough Fair." The silence that followed felt deeper than usual. Sarah sat down at the table across from Lena, folding her hands as though she were afraid to touch the moment too hard. "You remember it?" she asked. "I never forgot it." The song had lived between them for years. Quiet lullabies when the heater broke, car rides with a broken radio. The way Sarah used to hum it while pinning a job application to the fridge. It wasn't a performance piece. It wasn't meant for a stage. But it was the only song Lena ever sang out loud with her whole heart. "I'll be there," Sarah said softly. "Even if I have to walk." Lena smiled. "You won't have to." But secretly, she wondered. The next few days passed like walking through water. Everything heavier, slower, more distorted. At lunch, Brittany and her friends whispered each time Lena entered the cafeteria. One girl mimicked an opera vibrato in the hallway and bowed dramatically whenever Lena walked by. None of it stopped her. At night, she practiced in her room. No music. Just the lyrics written in her notebook. Careful cursive tilted gently to the right. She didn't sing loudly. She never had. She sang like someone pouring out water for a thirsty flower, quiet, gentle enough. On Thursday, just before dismissal, a woman from the front office slipped a pale pink note onto Lena's desk. Talent show rehearsal today, 3:15. Auditorium. Her palms started sweating before she stood. By the time she reached the stage, she was the last one there. Name. The music teacher asked. Lena Lane. The teacher looked down at the clipboard. Do you have a track? No, ma'am. I'll sing a cappella. There was a pause, then a sigh. The teacher nodded toward center stage. Okay. Let's keep it quick. Lena stepped forward. The stage lights were already hot. Her shoes stuck slightly on the painted wood. The vast space looked empty, but she knew people were there. A janitor wiping down folding chairs. 2 teachers chatting offstage. Someone near the soundboard chewing gum. She held the microphone. Then she let go. She didn't need it. Instead, she closed her eyes and sang. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Her voice barely rose above a whisper, but it held. It didn't shake. It didn't hide. The acoustics of the room caught it, bounced it, caressed it, let it breathe. By the second line, one teacher had stopped mid-pour with their coffee thermos. Another, Mrs. Childress from English, tilted her head slightly, brow furrowed. No music played, but the room filled anyway. When she finished, no one clapped. No one even moved. For 5 seconds, the silence felt like something sacred. Then the music teacher cleared her throat. Okay, thank you. Next. That was it. Lena stepped down from the stage without making eye contact, without hearing laughter, without knowing that someone watching from the back, someone in a gray coat, had quietly taken out his phone and made a note beside her name. Lena Lane, vocal solo. No music. She didn't notice. She was too busy clutching her notebook, where her mother's lullaby still waited in pencil, scratched verses. On the walk home, she hummed the melody again. The fan above her table still didn't spin. But Lena, for the first time in a long time, did. Friday arrived like any other school day, except it wasn't. Lena could feel it in her bones. Even before the sun crept through the broken blinds in their apartment kitchen. Her mother was already up, ironing the white dress with the care of someone preparing an offering. The fabric, thin from washing and sun, drying, still held together, though the sleeves sagged a little where the stitching had come loose last spring. Lena watched quietly as her mom worked. There were no pep talks, no, you got this, speeches. Just a silence that buzzed with meaning. Sarah looked up at one point, smiled faintly, and said, The first time I wore that dress, I sang for your grandfather's retirement party. Lena nodded. It's lucky? No. You're lucky, Sarah said. The dress just remembers. By lunch, Lena was a ghost drifting through the day. Teachers didn't call on her. Students mostly ignored her. But the whispers were back. She's still doing it? Someone said she's not even using music. Maybe she'll sing into a flip-flop and call it a mic. None of it mattered. Not as much as the weight she carried in her backpack, her notebook. The one with the lyrics in careful pencil. The one she'd been gripping so tightly the corners had begun to tear. At 5:30, she stood in the school's tiny restroom, staring at herself in the spotted mirror. Her braids were tight. Her shoes were clean, if scuffed. The dress hung stiffly from her shoulders, and the pendant at her neck, a cheap gold sun charm her mom had bought for her 10th birthday, rested right over her heart. She took a breath. Out in the hallway, the school buzzed like it never had before. Balloons taped to lockers. Folding chairs filled the auditorium. Parents, siblings, teachers, everyone was there. And near the very back row, David Carter took his seat quietly. No one knew who he was. just that he'd offered to sponsor some updates to the music room, just that he asked to observe the talent night, just that he brought his son and stayed in the shadows. His eyes scanned the stage as the lights dimmed and the MC, a nervous-looking substitute teacher, walked to the mic. "Welcome to Winslow Elementary's Talent Night. Tonight, our brave and creative students will share their talents with you. Please be respectful, kind, and supportive of each act." Applause followed. One by one, students came and went. A dance trio in sequin tops. A kid playing electronic drums too loudly for the mic. A magic act that went hilariously off script when the cards exploded from the volunteers' hands. Then, toward the end of the show, the MC cleared his throat and read from the list. And now a vocal solo by Lena Lane. Silence. Someone coughed. A few students nudged each other. Lena walked onto the stage. No piano behind her. No background music. No spotter from the sound booth. Just her. The stage lights were so bright she couldn't see the audience. But she didn't need to. She knew her mother was there. Third row. Left side, near the window. That was enough. She held the mic briefly, then set it aside. There was a flicker of confusion in the crowd. Lena took a breath. "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" Her voice was soft, thin at first, like something from another time, drifting in through an open window. In the front row, a group of students exchanged glances. One reached for a phone. But they didn't press record. Something quiet and heavy was happening. By the second line, the auditorium had gone still, not silent out of boredom or politeness. Silent because something was happening that no one expected. Not just a voice, but a memory being sung into form. A history written in lullabies and borrowed dresses and paper lunchbox notes. Backstage, the principal leaned forward slightly. The music teacher, arms crossed earlier, now dropped them and stared. And somewhere above, as Lena hit the third verse, the same fan that had stopped spinning days ago spun once, then again, then stopped. Not a draft, not a breeze, but a movement timed perfectly with a note held longer than anyone expected. The building wasn't old enough for ghost stories, but that didn't stop one from being written, and still she sang. Each lyric rolled like water across a stone. Gentle, unshaped by fear, entirely her own. The sun charm at her neck caught the light and shimmered once. No backup vocals, no auto-tune. Just the hush of 200 hearts realizing they'd forgotten how to listen. As she sang the final line, her voice cracked. Just slightly. It didn't ruin the moment. It completed it. Because it meant she still felt something. When the last note faded, there was silence. Not the awkward kind. The reverent kind? 1 second. 2. Then the applause came, not the cheering, whistling kind, but the long, full, almost reluctant kind. Like people didn't want to break whatever had just happened. And then one person stood. An older man near the back. Then another. Then the whole room. Lena didn't bow. She didn't cry. She just stood there, blinking under the light, and held her notebook to her chest. Somewhere down below, Sarah stood too, one hand on her chest, her smile trembling like her hands. And as Lena walked off stage, the fan above her spun once more, just once, and stopped. The gymnasium turned auditorium emptied slowly. Parents and teachers shuffled out with their coats draped over their arms, still speaking in lowered voices, as if raising the volume might undo what they'd just experienced. Some kids darted toward the refreshment table, fueled by post-performance adrenaline. Others huddled in cliques, already spinning up new inside jokes. But not about Lena. No one mentioned her name now, not even Brittany. She'd stayed seated through the standing ovation, not defiantly, just still. She hadn't expected that voice. hadn't expected to feel her throat tighten or for her fingers to stop mid-scroll on her phone. Whatever, she muttered finally to no one, rising and disappearing into the crowd. Backstage, Lena sat on a folded chair near the curtain, her dress wrinkled now from sitting, her notebook still clutched like armor. She didn't know what to do with herself. People had clapped, stood, looked at her differently. But none of that felt real yet. She only knew the part where she walked on stage and sang. The rest. It hadn't caught up yet. Then, a voice. "You forgot this?" She looked up. A woman in a white blouse, clean-lined and unfamiliar, held out a small piece of paper. Lena took it. The woman smiled. "My name's Alana Jensen. I conduct the Amarillo Youth Ensemble. My daughter sang earlier. She was the one in the pink dress who played piano." Lana nodded vaguely. She hadn't really watched the other acts. Her nerves had taken up too much space. Clara crouched to meet her eye level. "I wasn't expecting you," she said simply. Lena blinked. "I'm sorry. I came to watch my daughter. But then you sang. And it wasn't about technique or polish. It was," she paused. "It was like hearing someone tell a story that used to belong to me." Lena didn't quite understand. Clara softened her tone. "Do you have any training?" She shook her head. "Would you like some?" Lena hesitated. Clara stood, sensing she'd asked too much too quickly. "I run a youth program, scholarship-based. We cover all costs. It's mostly group rehearsals, but we offer one-on-one coaching too. If you're willing to audition formally, I'd love to help." She handed Lena a business card. "Think about it." Then she was gone, just like that. Later that night, Lena sat on the couch, barefoot in her wrinkled dress, the card still in her hand. Her mother walked in from the kitchen, holding 2 chipped mugs of mint tea. "You were brilliant," she said, as though this were fact and not opinion. Lena looked up. "Someone asked if I'd want to audition. For a scholarship." Sarah froze mid-sip. "Ooh, woman. Alana Jensen." Sarah sat down carefully, as if afraid to shift the weight of the moment too fast. "I know that name," she whispered. "She's on the board at Emerson Conservatory. That place with the summer program in Austin." Lena blinked. "The one with the domed hall and the mural of composers. The one we always walk past and say, 'Maybe someday.' That one." Lena's fingers curled around the card. Sarah reached out and gently touched her daughter's hand. "You don't have to say yes," she said. "But if you do, I'll find a way to get you there." Lena nodded. "I think I want to." 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. The envelope was pale blue with a gold seal on the back. Lena didn't open it right away. She just held it, ran her fingers over the edge, and then passed it to her mom. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it. She read silently, her lips moving. Then, "You're in." Lena didn't breathe. "All expenses covered. Travel, lodging, food. Starts in June." Lena just stared. She wasn't sure if she should scream or cry. "So instead," she said, "do you think they heard me?" Sarah smiled. "They didn't just hear you, they felt you." That June, Lena Lane boarded a bus to Austin. She wore her white dress, now altered slightly to fit better. Her mom had let out the seams and stitched a soft blue ribbon around the hem. In her backpack, she carried her notebook. The pages now included not just Scarborough Fair, but a list of new songs, blank pages filled with doodles, fragments of lyrics, and one paper, clipped copy of the scholarship letter. When she arrived at Emerson, everything felt too polished, too perfect. The other students had suitcases with wheels. Hers had duct tape. They wore ballet flats and designer hoodies. She wore second-hand sneakers and an oversized cardigan with fraying cuffs. but none of them had walked on stage into silence and walked off into applause. None of them had made the ceiling fan stop. She didn't feel better than them, just quieter, still carrying something they didn't know about. At orientation, Clara spotted her from across the room. She walked over, knelt beside Lena's seat, and whispered, "I'm glad you came." Lena smiled. Me too. The final evening of the Emerson summer program brought its own tide of pressure. Unlike school talent shows, this was no cafeteria stage with fold-up chairs and flickering lights. This was the Hall of Echoes, a domed chamber with marble floors and murals of composers that curved overhead like constellations. No one here laughed when someone sang. They took notes. Lena had spent weeks walking these halls in quiet awe, memorizing the acoustics of each practice room, tracing her fingers along brass plaques engraved with the names of past soloists. Students here had parents who were musicians, who'd trained since they could talk, who carried sheet music the way others carried water bottles. Lena carried a rusted lunchbox in her bag, not because she used it, but because she still needed to remember. Tonight's recital would be attended by faculty, invited families, and a few unnamed donors. Sarah wouldn't be in the audience. The trip was too far, the ticket too expensive. But she had mailed Lena a letter in her best cursive, along with a Polaroid of herself holding a poster that read, "We're all listening from home, Songbird." Lena kept it tucked in the front pocket of her dress. She stood now behind the curtain, her palms warm with nerves, the polished floor hard beneath her shoes. Clara approached quietly, her clipboard hugged to her chest. "Ready?" she asked. Lena nodded. "I don't think they're expecting you," Clara said. Lena managed a smile. "They never are." She stepped out onto the stage. The piano sat unoccupied to her left. Her music instructor had asked twice if she was sure she didn't want accompaniment. Lena politely declined each time. She looked out at the room. Dark silhouettes, flickers of light from reading glasses. A sea of waiting. She opened her notebook one last time, but not to read, just to feel the weight of the pages. Then she began. "I dreamt I dwelt in marble halls." It wasn't the song from the school talent show. This was older, more obscure. A piece her mother had hummed just once, when Lena was sick and too tired to speak. The first note quivered in the air like breath on cold glass. But it held, then built. There were no cracks this time, no falters. Just that strange, unmistakable sensation that her voice didn't belong to her anymore. That she was simply carrying it forward, out of some memory or some other girl's throat who lived in her bones now. The domed ceiling responded in kind. The acoustics curved the notes back to her, made the sound feel round and full and endless. Somewhere around the third stanza, a woman in the fourth row stopped taking notes. By the final line, the hall had stopped breathing. The last syllable dropped like a feather, and for one impossible, fragile moment, no one moved. Then a single clap, then a second, then thunder. No one stood this time, not because they weren't moved, but because they were too rooted, too reverent, too unsure how to behave in the face of something that had snuck up on them. Lena bowed gently. Her braid slipped over her shoulder. She walked off stage and back into the wings where Clara waited. "You stopped the room again," Clara said softly. Lena didn't answer. She just smiled, a real one, the kind that doesn't ask for applause. That night, back in her dorm room, Lena sat by the open window. Her white dress folded across her lap, the Polaroid from home propped against the lamp. The card from Clara was pinned to her corkboard now. But next to it, tacked with care, was a copy of a letter she hadn't told anyone about yet. A week before the final recital, it had arrived quietly, No fanfare, no return address. Just an envelope. Inside a type note on soft linen paper. Miss Lena Lane, I was there the night you sang at your school's talent show. I was not there officially, nor did I introduce myself. But I want you to know that your voice reminded me of a time I stopped believing in things like raw, untrained beauty. I was wrong. This enclosed contribution is to be used however you or your mother see fit. For the future of your voice, or simply your piece, please accept it without obligation. The world needs more stories like yours. A listener enclosed was a cashier's check. $15,000. Lena showed her mom first, of course. Sarah had stared at it in silence, lips trembling, then laughed. Actually laughed. We'll buy a car, she said. One with working AC, and we'll fix your molar. And we'll get you a microphone that doesn't squeak when you breathe too loud. They cried after that, then made grilled cheese and pretended the world hadn't tilted on its axis. Lena never found out who sent the letter, but something inside her knew. Mr. Carter never returned to Winslow Elementary, but he didn't need to. Lena Lane's voice had already opened the fire escape. Not a real one, not in the cafeteria ceiling, but the kind buried inside all the rooms we think we're locked inside. The kind that creaks open with the weight of belief. And just a little song. Some voices don't echo, they settle. They wrap around the air and drift into places too quiet to speak for themselves. They don't always come from gold medals or velvet stages. Sometimes they rise from rusted lunchboxes and notebook margins. You wouldn't expect Lena's voice to change anything. Not in a cafeteria. Not under a ceiling fan. Not inside a white dress that had already lived another life. But it did. It changed the temperature of a room. It pulled still air into motion. It told everyone for a moment to stop pretending they weren't hungry for something honest. And that's the real reason why the world gets so quiet when someone unexpected begins to sing. Not because we doubt them, but because deep down, we're hoping they'll make us feel something we forgot we could, like belonging, like truth, like home. So if you ever find yourself afraid to speak or hum or rise to a stage someone built without you in mind, remember this: you don't need permission. You don't need polish. You only need one moment that belongs to you, and maybe one listener who doesn't look away. The rest will come.